Greetings, I'm Mary. Today, everything comes down to a single word which sounds simple, but in the past has been full of traps. It's called truce. He has never said he agrees to release all hostages, alive or deceased, under an exchange formula that remains unexplained. They say they're ready to negotiate with the mediators immediately, but as always, there are hidden conditions. The political future of Gaza, the Palestinians, and the administration of the Strip would be discussed within their own national framework, with a supposed government of independent Palestinian technocrats as they defined it. That is, an acceptance that seems more like a tactical move than a surrender. Hamas offers dialogue, but without losing control. Meanwhile, Washington is moving quickly. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated that the talks are progressing and that only technical issues remain to be resolved. Steve Witkoff's envoy is already traveling to Egypt along with Israeli and Arab representatives, which ensures that a very dramatic week is coming. In theory, the 72-hour timeline to begin the release of hostages announced by President Trump should have started today, meaning the deadline would end today, right at the moment of making this video. But everything suggests that it could be extended. Trump insists that Israel has already accepted the withdrawal line presidency and that only the official confirmation from Hamas is needed to start the ceasefire. But that confirmation up to this moment of recording the video has not arrived. And while peace is being discussed in the offices, caution prevails on the ground. The Israel Defense Forces ordered the suspension of offensive operations in Gaza City and to switch to a strictly defensive mode, concentrating all air power, drones, helicopters, planes, to guarantee the safety of the troops and facilitate the release of hostages. The message to the Gazan population was clear: do not return to the city yet, do not approach the Israeli units. Obviously, no one wants a tragedy in the middle of such a delicate process that is taking place and that could possibly lead to total success. However, behind the apparent calm, there is a lot of pressure. Israel knows that it never has the living hostages located. They talk about 20 in total, and that the terrorist group is demanding the release of 250 prisoners who are sentenced to life imprisonment and 1,700 detainees who were captured after October 7th. An absolutely unequal equation no matter how you look at it, but sadly familiar when it comes to previous processes. And as if all this weren't enough, Hamas is trying to project an image of political openness. An intra-Palestinian dialogue in Egypt to discuss unity and the future of the Strip. Very nice on paper. But is it hard to believe that the same people who have turned hospitals into command centers and tunnels into cemeteries are thinking about national reconciliation? Even so, the reality is that for the first time in many months, there is real movement in the negotiations. And that in this war is much more. For now, everything is up in the air. Israel stops the fire, Hamas promises to cooperate, Trump pushes his plan, and Egypt prepares to receive the delegations. A kind of board where everyone makes moves but no one shows their cards. We'll have to see if this time the game ends in a truce or another unexpected twist. The heart of the matter now lies in the famous day after. That lovely phrase politicians use when they want to sound optimistic without saying anything concrete. The plan that Donald Trump presented a few days ago states that as soon as the truce comes into effect, the Israel Defense Forces would maintain control of about 70% of Gaza. That is the entire perimeter, the Philadelphia corridor, Rafah, a large part of Khan Yunis, and all of the north. Basically, Israel would remain there, just pulled back a bit toward the border. Then, according to the face map, an international force would take over the administration of the Gaza Strip and the Israel Defense Forces would gradually withdraw. It sounds orderly, almost idealistic, but the big question remains the same: who is going to make up that force? Because we've already lived through this story before. In Lebanon, for example, the United Nations was supposed to ensure that Hezbollah wouldn't rearm, and what happened? They rearmed to the teeth. Israel fought a battle 10 times bigger on its northern border than what had been anticipated before, even dismantling units of Hezbollah itself. Very close, just a few meters from strategic United Nations locations where they always turned a blind eye. And although Israel emerged victorious and with Hezbollah absolutely decimated, the precedent was set. So paper can say a lot, but previous experiences don't really inspire much enthusiasm. While diplomats draw borders on maps, Egypt is preparing right now on the ground. Heavy equipment and machinery have already started to enter the north of Nuseirat in the Al Bureik area, where the largest temporary camps in southern Gaza are being built. The official narrative says it's to ease the suffering of the displaced and prevent them from crossing the border into Egypt, something that Cairo fears more than anything else. At the same time, the Israeli hostage coordinator met with representatives of the Red Cross to define the logistics of the deliveries. They will be done, no cameras or ceremonies. Probably even during the night and in secure areas under military supervision. A new and very curious player appears in this whole scheme. The idea of a security force, Palestinian, trained by Egypt and Jordan, along with a council of 15 Palestinian technocrats and supposed international supervision led by Tony Blair. Yes, the same former British Prime Minister who already had his moment in the peace process more than a decade ago, and who, like all the mediators in the Middle East, ended up leaving with more frustrations than achievements. But now he's back on the board, maybe looking for a bit of redemption. Israel watches all of this with a mix of pragmatism and distrust. On one hand, it knows it needs a political solution that doesn't mean staying in Gaza indefinitely, but on the other hand, it also can't delegate its security to international organizations that have proven to be almost completely ineffective. In the Israeli government, there's a phrase that's often repeated and sums up the mentality of the people. If the international community doesn't act, Israel will act anyway. In other words, a truce, yes, but no naivety. And that might be the real dilemma of this story. Because behind every map, every statement, and every diplomatic word, the same question still lingers. Can there be a day after in Gaza as long as Hamas is still breathing? Before we continue, I ask you to check if you're still subscribed to the channel because several people have left me messages saying they were unsubscribed by YouTube for some strange reason. If you want to know what's really happening in Israel and the region, subscribe and turn on notifications. What will happen in the next few days will be decisive for the entire region and the world. And I say this because while there's talk of a truce, new findings keep coming to light that reveal how it operated. Never inside Gaza. In the last few hours, the Israel Defense Forces revealed a 1.5-kilometer long tunnel right beneath the Jordanian hospital in the very center of the city. A complex with command rooms, rest areas, and a small weapons manufacturing workshop. The discovery is a new blow to this narrative of heroic resistance that Hamas tries to sell to the world. Using hospitals, schools, and mosques as shields is no longer a suspicion. It's an absolutely documented pattern. At the same time, from Qatar, Khalil al-Hajja, one of the political masterminds of Hamas, appeared on the scene confirming that he will lead the delegation to Cairo, the same Khalil that Israel tried to eliminate a few weeks ago in Qatar. And this, well, is simply a way of saying we're still in charge and we're still negotiating. And to complete the picture, Palestinian sources admitted that they have begun to collect the bodies of deceased hostages. They are asking Israel to stop the attacks so they can complete the task, and they are asking for guarantees that Israeli troops will gradually withdraw and will not attack their leaders. In Israel, the official tone is cautiously optimistic. Netanyahu said that this agreement is a great luxury and that they managed to force Hamas to accept his plan, aiming to return all hostages at once while keeping military control in strategic areas. It's a statement meant to project strength, but there are still many open variables. The truth is that although the offensive has ended, Gaza remains a minefield both literally and politically, and any wrong move could reignite the conflict in a matter of hours. And outside the military front, the battlefield is now public opinion. In Europe, hundreds of thousands of people are once again taking to the streets under the banner of Free Palestine. The problem is that many of those protesters are not talking about a Palestinian state alongside Israel, but instead of Israel. They say it openly, from the river to the sea. A slogan that doesn't call for coexistence, but for the disappearance of the Israeli people. And seeing so many people shamelessly defending an organization like Hamas is one of those complete absurdities that have already become part of European routine. Seeing Europeans defending the cause of those who are right now setting their cities on fire. The radical left and Islamist movements march together, and the result is a mix of selective morality and street violence, which only confirms that for some, peace is not the goal. The goal is Israel. And while all this is happening, the Israel Defense Forces reports more than 60 dead in Gaza from precision strikes during the last 24 hours before the attacks stopped. Because even though they've switched to defensive mode, when there's information about an active cell or a rocket launcher, they simply take action. And this is established in the prevention protocols used by the Israeli army. The truth is that this whole situation, which just started happening this weekend, feels like a relief, but a very restrained one. On the surface, there is a pause, a move toward calm, but no one in Israel is fooled. A truce is not the end of the war, it's just a semicolon in a story that's still being written. What happens in the coming days will determine more than just the hostages' fate. It could mark the beginning of a new era for the entire region. If this conflict has shown anything, it's that Hamas hasn't changed at all. Its essence is to use negotiation as a tactic, not as its purpose. And on the other side, Israel has no intention of abandoning the security of its people just to please international headlines. If the international force promised by the mediators fails, as has happened so many times before, Israel will do what it always does, act alone, even if the world frowns upon it. Afterwards, Trump says that the plan is ready. Hamas says it accepts. Egypt, the media, and Qatar organize, and everyone seems to be moving toward peace. But here, on the ground, where alarms sound and soldiers and innocent Gazan civilians are buried, the word peace still doesn't have much shape, so to speak. There is hope, of course, but in Israel, memory weighs heavily. So for now, we'll leave it here. Not because everything has been said, but because the most important things are yet to happen in the coming days. If you haven't done it yet, check if you're subscribed and turn on the notification bell so you'll know when I upload a new update. Leave your like before you go and of course share this video. Remember that memberships are active, which give you access to the private news group on WhatsApp, where every day we update the group with the news that's happening throughout the day. See you!